Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast dedicated to helping creative entrepreneurs thrive. I'm Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the business of their dreams. This week, I am thrilled to welcome Adam Nathan. He's the CEO, co-founder of Blaze, the #1 marketing AI tool built for teams. Adam is no stranger to building and scaling companies. He's shipped products to millions, raised over $46 million, and grew Blaze to $7 million in revenue in just 15 months with a lean team of only 25 people. He also shares his playbook for success through Startup Tycoon, which we'll talk about, where he drops weekly cheat codes on how to build and grow a $150 million company. I'm pumped to dive into your journey and kind of hear what we're talking about with AI and how it can help agencies and marketing teams and the lessons that you've learned along the way through the rapid growth. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah. So what was the impetus to launch Blaze based on your entrepreneurial journey and what you've been up to?
Yeah, well, I'm from New York City originally, born and raised. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My brother also has started a business. Our grandfather ran an insurance company, and we grew up around parents who run a small business together. My parents are in the outerwear industry. They sell coats and hats and stuff. I have for my whole life, and they did it basically out of our apartment. My mom's an accountant. My dad interacted with clients. And so growing up, my brother and I were around them as they built this thing from nothing to something, paid for our life, my college education. And, as successful as they were at kind of growing their business in the brick and mortar world, they've also struggled to translate that success into the online world. They still don't have a website. They don't use email to communicate with their customers. They DM me on Instagram, but they don't, I think, use Instagram to grow awareness or impressions or leads for their business. And my brother and I, throughout our childhood, and especially now in our adulthood, since we both work in tech, would always exhort our parents to, build a website or post pictures of their goods. And it's just, so easy for us to do. And we would just say like, hey, it'll take you a couple of minutes. We can do it for you. It's so easy. But the reality is it's not easy for a lot of folks who aren't professional marketers to figure out how to grow from the internet. We've always had tools, or not always, but for the last 10 years, we've had tools like Squarespace that could help you build a website, or Instagram or Buffer that can help you manage content, or MailChimp for sending emails. But actually figuring out like what a good post is that could engage people, or a good website that converts visits into leads, or a good email that people open and click on, that knowledge was really the domain of professional marketers who are full-time living in cities like San Francisco and New York. And the reality of most small business owners is that they're great at growing their business, but they're not marketers. They don't have the skills, they don't have the time, they don't have the money. They're wearing 10 different hats, from paying the bills to serving customers to coming up with new ideas. And marketing that really works is a full-time job. And so there's always been this catch-22 for small businesses that they need to do great marketing to grow, but they don't have the time or money or skills to do so. And that was the reality until AI. And so what we built with Blaze is essentially a virtual marketer that creates a strategic plan for you around how to grow your business, then automatically generates and schedules and posts and analyzes content, can learn from the content so it actually improves over time. And our goal is to help our customers basically grow impressions and leads and sales. And of the hundreds of thousands of customers we have, those that basically stay with the product for 3 months or longer have seen their revenues or sales grow 3x or more, which is really cool to see because ultimately Blaze, for a lot of folks, is replacing a person. It's sometimes replacing an agency. We actually have a lot of agencies that use Blaze as well to grow their revenue. But, just like a human, if the product doesn't actually produce results, you wouldn't hire that person for a long time. And, it's been really cool to see AI level the playing field for a lot of small teams where, now just because they're small doesn't mean they can't be great.
Super cool. So I guess, specifically speaking about Blaze, is it tailored better for B2B, D2C, or is it great across the board, B2B, et cetera?
Yeah, so we specialize in social media content, which includes images and videos for LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. So that's short form, long form video, text posts, text images, that kind of thing. So all social media content, blogs and SEO, newsletters and outbound, and ads are really kind of the four marketing workflows that Blaze can execute for you. I think. Probably the biggest of those use cases is around organic social media content or taking that content and putting money behind it via an ad. That's kind of our top use case. Blogs and SEO are a second, and outbound emails and newsletters are a third.
Interesting. Okay. So you kind of thought this up out of a need for mom and dad are Luddites. They don't need a website, but they do need a website. And in their mind, they're going to sell to people they know, like, and trust that walk into the store. So there was a need that arose. We're going to develop a product. You're now, how far into it are you? 2 years?
Less than that. We launched in
Okay.
October 2023, so probably
Wow. Okay.
17 months. Yeah, almost at the 16 months or so, probably technically. And so it's been a year and a third. And yeah, we've just seen pretty explosive growth since we launched. In that time, we've gone from $0 in revenue to, I think, over $10 million in revenue today. So, we're growing 40% or so month over month, which, in any business most businesses can't even support that kind of growth, especially at the scale that we're at now. We have, millions and millions of users who are on the product every day. And our team is small. We have 25 people on the team right now. So it's been quite a wild ride in the last year and a half.
That's sick. Does 25 team members include engineers, developers, AI programmers, etc.?
Yeah, we have, I think, we have one designer. I'm the product manager. We have 10 engineers, and I think 5 marketers, and some other folks that help out. But yeah, it includes everybody.
Very cool. So I'm going to ask you a line of questioning, not to, I don't even know how to phrase it. I don't want to put any negative shade on what you're building, but I want to talk about the impact of AI in the marketing advertising industry as a whole. And I'll preface it with, I use an AI tool every single day. My fiance just used ChatGPT for the first time yesterday, and one question turned into like 2 or 3 prompts. And so her mind was blown, and I was like, yay, finally, welcome, old lady. And she's 10 years younger than me. So the point is, it's not a topic that can be avoided. It's not a tool that can be ignored. But there's some concerns behind it. So you even mentioned this is a tool that would have typically been used, the things that it's doing would have typically been done by a marketing team or an agency, and now a robot, use that word loosely, is replacing it. What feedback have you had, or how do you see this impacting teams or agencies as a whole, as just from a personnel standpoint?
Well, I would differentiate between how AI is impacting large teams like enterprises, corporations, big companies, and how it's impacting small teams. I think for large companies, the story with AI is largely around reducing, resources, cutting costs, saving time. And I think there's a lot of fear in large companies about that. Like, well, obviously it sells newspapers or gets clicks to read stories like, will AI take my job? And I think that's the pitch to large companies is, yeah, you can have AI automate certain functions like customer service or some parts of marketing or some parts of sales. But with small businesses, which is where we really focus, we serve entrepreneurs, founders, agencies, freelancers, creatives, mom and pop shops on Main Street, manufacturing companies, educators, podcasters. The story is actually much more positive. AI is allowing our customers to do way more than they could do before. I'd say a third of our customers before Blaze were doing nothing. They weren't posting on social media. They didn't have a website. They weren't running ads. And so the alternative wasn't like a human. It was nothing. And then another third were doing some stuff, but it wasn't working. They were posting photos of their grandkids or a sunset or the American flag on Instagram. They weren't talking about what their company does, who it's for, why it's better. They weren't doing any kind of effective marketing. And so it's like going to the gym, but like not knowing what you're doing there, walking in, walking out, and of course being, surprised when you get no results. A third of our customers we're making progress, but just don't have enough resources, time or money to really scale. And so,
Right.
For all of our customers, Blaze is helping them produce high quality content in a fraction of the time that actually produces more impressions and leads and revenue. And I talk to 2 to 3 customers every day. The stories of the impact of AI on them are amazing. I haven't actually, of course, I'm talking to some of our best customers, but I haven't heard of any negative downsides for small businesses. I talked to a guy in North Carolina a week ago who took his wife on vacation for the first time in 13 years because of the time he got back from Blaze. I talked to a mom in Indiana an agency owner actually, who has seen her revenue 5x because she's spending her time now actually interfacing with clients or bringing in new ones instead of just spending days writing Instagram posts. I talked to a photographer in Pennsylvania, a wedding photographer who has seen her revenue increase 10x because number one, she's actually able to spend her time photographing weddings instead of writing content. And 2, the marketing she does is much better than what she was doing before because she's not a professional marketer. I hear a version of the story over and over again, and the benefits are threefold. Blaze saves a ton of people a ton of time because great marketing comes from not just like figuring out 100 unique things to say. It comes from saying one thing 100 times. Great marketing is telling the market who you are and why they should pick you over and over and over again. And a lot of it's actually pretty boring to do. It's not just time consuming, but it's mundane. And Blaze is like the best marketer you've ever hired in that it can work 24/7. It doesn't get tired, doesn't get bored, it doesn't complain. It just does what you ask it to do all the time while you sleep. So it saves people a lot of time. It produces better content than anyone can do. I use Blaze for my Twitter posts, my LinkedIn posts, my newsletter, and I'm always surprised, even though I think I'm a good communicator, how much better it is than me at producing posts. It sounds like me, and of course, it's not just fast, but it's often as good or better than what I think I would have written. And then it's effective. It actually leads to more outcomes. And so I'm not just saying all this is, of course, I'm biased in saying and believing that AI is a good thing. I think I do not believe the prognostications that AI is going to lead to a world where no one works or where we're all drowning like in this sea of mediocre content that we can't differentiate from. If you look at any major wave of technology, there's always been people out there that are like, oh, well, now that we have computers or phones, like we're not going to work anymore. We're going to go to a 2-day work week. And the reality is, if you look at the amount of hours people have worked, it's been on a steady rise since the 1950s, basically since the start of the modern age of technologization. So what I think AI is doing is automating or eliminating lower end tasks so that humans can focus on the things that only we can do. People value that which is scarce, and creativity is, I think, the scarcest quantity of all. And the way AI works, it looks at the past to predict the present. It can look at all your data, all your posts to write a new post for you, but it can't predict the future. Only humans can kind of see around the curve and think of what could be. And I think for a lot of our customers, they get to spend their time doing that, not just for marketing, but for all the other things in their business that they have to do.
Yeah. I love that you differentiate between like the large companies in industry, behemoths, and the small mom and pops, who is your target audience. And I think both stand to benefit from really strong tools like this to create efficiencies. But on a smaller scale, like you're mentioning, it's giving the accidental entrepreneur or the accidental, the photographer who, I just want to take photos, I don't want to run a business. It's giving them the edge that, okay, I can go do the craft that I love and not have to worry about the things that you still have to do to grow your business or, get new clients or, things like that. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say, for small businesses, there's a lot to gain and not a lot to lose. They have a lot of revenue they could be making that they're not. If they didn't use Blaze, they would be doing nothing anyway. Big businesses, there's intellectual property considerations, there's security considerations, does the model use my data? How do we prove that? There's questions about performance reviews. How do we attribute value created by the AI versus a human for promotions? Yep. So they have years of things to think through. There's a lot of existing systems and protocols that have to be updated. And so, for us, it's, I think, frankly, good business to focus on consumers and SMBs because they are the early adopters of this technology because of the cost benefit. I think enterprises will take years to figure out how to integrate this into their existing systems. And so, I'm skeptical actually of AI companies that focus on enterprises, because unless they have a lot of money or patience, I don't think they're going to get very far. And if you look, you talked about your partner. If you look at who's picking up AI so far, it's students, it's people using AI for search, like consumers, it's small businesses, it's people, regular people, actually, not big businesses, that are finding the most initial benefit from the technology.
Yeah, the adoption and integration rate at large scale is at a snail's pace, whereas take a 1, 5, 10 person, 20 person agency, it's either top down led, or it's the young smart digital native who's like, hey, look what I just did on Midjourney, et cetera, et cetera, and now we're cranking out images for our pitch decks on Midjourney, or you know what I mean, like using any of these other tools. It is way quicker to deliver results on a smaller scale like that. So yeah, I love that. I'm part of a bunch of discussions on LinkedIn primarily, where somebody will start the conversation by saying, and it's usually, I don't want to say it's from a place of arrogance, but it's usually a posturing standpoint of, we never use AI for our creative work. And then you'll get people that'll chime in, and the debate is, we use it, we don't use it, do we disclose it to clients from the agency standpoint? And kind of, what's your stance there as far as the disclosure of it from an agency standpoint, and the ethics behind using it for full fidelity work?
Uh, I get the conversation in the industry amongst agencies about how to disclose, whether to use it in the first place. I obviously talk to a lot of agencies who do use AI, and I think the case for using it is that, especially for small agencies, business development takes a ton of time, client service takes a ton of time, and treating clients well or bringing on new clients is often a trade-off against actually executing for clients. Because, as you know, it takes a lot of time to draft a month's worth of Instagram posts, or write a month's worth of blog posts, or write a newsletter every week. And if it's just you running the agency, or you have only a couple folks, you can choose between serving your existing customers or bringing on new ones, or even kind of quality versus scale in your business. Do you treat people well by focusing on fewer customers, or do you try and scale and make some trade-offs around the experience new customers are getting? And those are kind of untenable trade-offs. I don't think you should have to accept that it should be one or the other. And so I think we see a lot of agencies using Blaze to execute production on multiple customers, more customers, frankly, than they've ever had before. The key in Blaze being this feature we have called brand kits, where you can feed Blaze a client's website. You can connect their Instagram or social accounts. You can give access to their Google Drive, and Blaze will learn about that client's business, how they talk, the visual styles they post in, so that all the content is hyper personalized. It looks and sounds like the client, and that allows agencies to basically scale up how many clients they can serve, because they're not just saving time on the production, but the quality is there too. And so that's allowed a lot of small agencies to 5-10x their client list. I think there will be, I think most agencies will go that way, and they'll say like, hey, we're using AI to automate the production of your work, but there's still a lot of creative work that only humans can do. And so in terms of like what your strategy is, what your messaging is, basically what we're telling the AI to do, that will still be me, the human that you're hiring. I will be approving and reviewing all that content. I'll be sharing it with you. And so, that which cannot be done by a computer, by technology, will still be done by a human. I think this is where capitalism will end up winning, where, some agencies will disclose what I just said, some won't. Some will say, hey, hire us if you are against AI and you want everything to be done by a human, even if it takes a long time and it's really bespoke. Some people will prefer that. Some people will say like, hey, I'm totally fine if AI does my marketing. I don't care. I just want a low price. So I think you'll end up getting a diversity of responses to the technology, and the market will be segmented on the customer side by people who have different preferences in terms of cost, client experience, quality, speed. And so I don't think there's only one answer here. I think there'll be different approaches, and I think there can be multiple winners.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, Pentagram got eviscerated for using an AI tool, and I don't know what tool they used. I don't think they disclosed it, but they came up with an icon library for a client, and it was a couple hundred icons. And so their internal design team came up with the look and feel, and then they fed it into some robot, and it spit out a few hundred icons in that look and feel. And very consistent, very clean. Made some tweaks, update this one, update that one, gave it to the client, and the client said, let's go in this direction. Fed it back in, got a whole new creative direction. And they got eviscerated because you took away the work of an art director or two art directors. You took away the work of two or three production designers, et cetera, et cetera. And the reality is, and nobody knows what Pentagram charged other than Pentagram and the client. The reality is, and to your point, they got this done in like lightning speed time, hopefully at a savings to the client. And so the efficiencies that it creates are ridiculous. However, there are people that are like, dude, I'm out of work. You just had a robot create all these icons. I could have done it, so I get both sides of it. I'm all for, can we do the work of, 10 people with 4 people and pay people better and do, have a better culture and better lifestyle. But I also get it from the other side of, I'd rather employ 10 more people or, so yeah, I'm also kind of like you. There's a million different ways to do it.
I think this is, I hadn't heard that story before, but this is, I think, the classic story of the internet, which is the main effect of the internet is what's called disintermediation. Essentially, it gets rid of the middle part of the value chain between the consumer and the supplier. And so you see this in music with, today Spotify, but before that Napster. You see this in e-commerce with Amazon. If you wanted toilet paper before, you'd have to go to your corner store and buy the toilet paper, and they would use a distributor who would use a bigger distributor who would contact someone in Asia and interface with the supplier. And so, all these businesses that would take a chunk of the value. And so, yeah, they used that revenue to employ people. Also was really inefficient. And so the internet allows you now to order toilet paper and it comes straight from the supplier on a really efficient supply chain. And so you get the toilet paper faster and for less. But yeah, there's probably fewer people who are carrying those boxes along the way. Same thing with music or any creative industry. The effect of which has been there's more leverage for people who are actually creating end value, artists, performers, creatives actually have more power now, make more money. They can go direct to people who want their art. But the record labels are struggling. And so I think there's a transition period. And yes, some people, I think often middle managers will lose their work because now you can just go direct essentially. So I think, an individual designer now can create a business around their work because they can have the AI do the production, they can have the ideas, and they can use a tool like Blaze to go find customers and serve them well. So, now someone who had to be employed by Pentagram before because they couldn't figure out how to attract customers now can actually go make a couple $1 million a year on their own and get the power and freedom from that too. Do I cry for middle managers? Generally, no. I think the goal of, the role of government generally should be like, we should be developing policies that help retrain people who are going to be impacted by a new technology. This should be true for any technology, frankly, not just AI. But yeah, I think there's with new technology, there's always changes in market structures, and I don't think it's the fault of the innovation. So yes, I don't. The reality is, I think with this technology, unlike thinking about globalization as a technology, it really affected blue collar workers more. I think with AI, it will affect white collar workers more. These middle manager types, like I think big consulting firms are going to get eviscerated, which is fine by me. Big accounting firms, big law firms, like you don't need 100 lawyers to do due diligence if you can just ask Harvey to do it for you. You don't need, a big marketing firm to write content for you every day, or even a big agency if you can hire Blaze. And I think, net, this means more value gets created in the world that goes to more people than ever before, especially kind of in this case, the long tail of the market. So when I think about what happens with Blaze's success over years, I think we are rewriting the rules of the economy and who gets to win in America. We all pay lip service to the American dream, but the reality for a long time has been that you win in America if you have money and power and connections, even though we say it's something else. And I think finally now it will really be about your courage to bet on yourself, your creativity, your commitment to seeing it through. That will determine your success more than where you were born or how much money your parents had or where you went to college. And so I think we are entering a new era of capitalism in this country where finally the small guy can get ahead, not just get ahead, but win the whole game. And I think that's really exciting. And if it costs a couple middle managers their jobs, that's fine by me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm all for the little guy, little gal, little anybody. Give them the edge and help them win. Absolutely. Real quick, another question. It might kind of be might be a little polarizing, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you feel like there is a decent roadmap for government oversight, especially how AI, as a whole, is impacting, like having ecological impacts?
um, you know, I'm I think the technology is still fairly nascent, and I think it's good to have some folks thinking through the risks of the technology. In this case, yeah, the fact that there's a non-zero chance it does lead to the end of the world, but using the technology every day can tell you how brittle it is, and it's not AGI, it's not sentient, it can't control our electrical grid or anything like that. It's really hard to even get it to produce high quality content uh, a million times a day. We spend countless hours just kind of tweaking it just to help it produce something that you can post on Instagram. So if it can't do that, at least right now, I'm not super worried about more complicated tasks. It could get there eventually, but that's just not where we are right now. There's no reason to worry. In general, I'm a fan of seeing where the technology goes, seeing what actual use cases emerge before you regulate it. In other words, regulating the outputs and not the inputs. I think if you look at data privacy on the internet, we've made a huge mistake by regulating the input. We don't know what good use cases could come from having very large sets of data. We could, in the future, ostensibly use them to cure cancer or fix climate change, but asking everybody to basically reject cookies on their computer prevents us from even having the data that we would need to understand what use cases could come from it. So I think it's a mistake to regulate inputs. I think we should be regulating outputs, especially the downside risk of them once we figure out what they are. But I don't think that with AI, we're at a point where we know, oh, yes, I guess you can tell, yes, marketing is going to be a use case. Customer service is going to be a use case. Legal work will be a use case. But there's still a lot to figure out there. I think we should take a eyes open but slow to act approach, and kind of as soon as we see that something's a problem, I hope regulators step in. But I worry about over regulating too soon based on an ignorant understanding of where the technology is going, and then prohibiting us from getting some of the gains from that future. Well, because we're only focused on the downside risk.
Yeah, no, I love that. What about the impact on, I don't know what the stats are, but every 5 queries equals a gallon of water or whatever the ecological impact.
I'm not familiar too much with the math, but what I do know is that if you look at the trajectory of models, I think NVIDIA's stock price, for example, was predicated on this idea that we're going to need ever more servers to generate ever more powerful models, and so we're going to need to buy them from NVIDIA. But if you look at what happened with DeepSeek, for example, and even what's happening at Google and OpenAI and Anthropic, the models are actually getting much cheaper to build. So on a exponentially compounded curve, which means we need less compute than ever to do way more work. It's the reverse of what everyone thought would happen. And so I think actually the ecological impact will go down over time, even as usage and complexity goes up, because we will figure out more efficient ways of getting the job done. Or I'm saying we as if I'm working at these companies. I think they will figure this out. It seems to be the case. And it's kind of a surprise of, again, what everyone thought would be the reality. But I hope that's the case, because it means that we will not need as much energy to run these servers. I'm also a fan of things like nuclear power and alternative energy sources to produce the energy we need. And Sam Altman, for example, is a big investor in nuclear alongside OpenAI, I think, for this very reason. I'm just generally an optimist that if we allow ourselves to innovate in this country and others, we can science our way out of a lot of these problems. I think the problem often comes when there's bad narratives, that create these false narratives that create cultural blockers to innovation or regulatory blockers to innovation. That happens both here in America, on both the left and the right, in other countries as well. I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy when it comes to solving problems, like the regulatory examples we were just talking about. But I'm an optimist that if this trend continues, we'll need less energy than we ever thought to produce really amazing results with AI.
So we shouldn't look out for the Blaze.ai nuclear power plant anytime soon. Good to know.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. To give you a very specific example for us, when we all started our businesses, when the first kind of application layer businesses were coming out, there was a common narrative amongst investors and founders that, oh my God, this AI is going to be so expensive. And we had built limits in our product where if you use too much AI, we're going to charge you overages. Investors would ask me how is this impacting your unit costs? It's the cost of compute essentially for us. The cost to produce AI outputs is single digit percentages of our unit costs. It's nothing. I don't think there's been any customer who has gone over our overages. And those costs have only gone down as the models have gotten better. So it's just, a substantial part of our costs are acquiring customers, serving them, hiring our team, paying for tools. But AI is actually not even in the top 20 cost buckets for us. So it's just not. And so if you extrapolate that out over many companies, I'm more skeptical about the profitability of something like OpenAI or Anthropic, because how are they going to make money? But I think if you look at the development of most industries, profits tend to accrue at the layer closest to the consumer. So you buy an Apple computer, you're not buying the chip inside and the screen resolution and the keyboard manufacturer. No one cares about the components; they care about the overall experience. And so I think the winners from AI, just like every other wave of innovation, will be companies like Blaze, because people are buying Blaze for the quality of our content, but also our brand, our customer service, our community. It's everything. What being a Blaze customer says about them. And so it's almost interesting to see that so much focus on the wrong things compared to where history tells us this story is going to go.
Yeah, agreed. And I love that. I love that kind of framework on, listen, of all the costs and all the impact, the CPU usage or whatever you call the technical framing for it is the least of the concern. So I'm grateful for that framing. Thank you for explaining that. To wrap up, I'm going to throw a couple of random rapid fire questions that my customized robot spits out for me on every guest. So I have a randomizer from my own robot. So the first is, would you rather be 10 minutes late or 30 minutes early?
I'm frequently 10 minutes late, so I'd rather be 30 minutes early.
Love it. What's a childhood hobby that you wish you never gave up?
I was really into Legos, and I wish I still had them around.
You can just go buy some, man.
I could.
Finally, and you might already have this, but if your business, and apologies for not knowing this ahead of time, but if your business had a mascot, what would it be?
We did have oh my God, what did we call it? I'm going to mess up the name. We had a little, a bird in our lifecycle emails that would congratulate people on milestones around the amount of content they produced or how much growth they got on their social media linked accounts. We had a name for it, and I'm forgetting it now. So if you sign up for Blaze and you get the emails, you can DM me and tell me what it is. But it was a cute little bird that dressed up in different costumes based on your the different milestones you've achieved with your growth. So
very cool.
It's a bird of some kind.
Awesome. Listen, Adam, I'm grateful that we got to spend some time together, kind of talk through the entire, ecosystem of AI these days, the tools that are available, some of the ethics that people are digging into. We didn't get to talk about Startup Tycoon, but folks, if you're interested in Adam's startup and entrepreneurial experience, jump over to startuptycoon.com, subscribe to his email list, check out Blaze.ai. Adam, thank you again for joining me. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.